Hi, I'm Lorna, and today we're going to be making a paper cut egg. You're going to need some paper in any color you would like, a cutting mat, scissors, a knife, glue, and some cardboard. So I'm just going to take a piece of printer paper and I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to do this so that I can get a nice symmetrical egg. So I'm just going to draw along the center fold. And I'm going to do half an egg or a semicircle. You can always trim this up later. It doesn't need to be perfect. So I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to cut along the lines that I drew. And when I open it up, I should have a nice egg shape. Now, I actually like a little bit flatter of a bottom on my egg, so I'm going to do a little bit of trimming. Yeah, that's much better. So this template is going to be for our large paper. This is a 5x8, but the size of your paper really doesn't matter. You can make anything from a large egg to a very teeny tiny egg using the same method. This paper is an 8x5. So I'm going to trace around my template. And again, you don't need to be super precise here. You're not going to see any of your pencil marks. And you can always trim it up or shape it with your X-acto blade later on. Once you're happy with your drawing, you're going to take your X-acto blade on top of your cutting mat. You're going to cut out this egg. If you don't have a cutting mat, you can just use a large piece of cardboard or do it on a table that you don't care that's cut up. I like to turn the paper to follow my X-acto blade. I like to use a really sharp X-acto blade. This one happens to be incredibly dull, but it's all I have at the moment. So we're going to make do. You can use scissors entirely, but I find it to be a little bit easier to use the craft knife. To use scissors, you could just cut out the center, but you would ruin the center egg in between. And I'm going to reuse this egg for another project. So I'm just doing a little bit of cleaning up on some areas that I didn't like so much. So I'm just going to place all of these colors in our little egg-shaped window so that you can see what they will look like. I'm going to do some wave shapes in between here. And I'm just going to go ahead and take my orange and I'm going to trace around it. This is going to give me an idea of how big my window is and where I should cut. I'm just going to take my X-acto blade and I'm going to carve out that wave shape. Just going to go up, down, till I get to the edges. And then I need to cut out the top of my egg so that the next color underneath can show through. And you can save all of these scraps for another project. You can cut things out of them. You could even layer them and make an additional egg. Every step of the way, I'm going to be putting my little orange window back on top, just so I can get an idea of how the layers are looking together, if I need to make any changes or cut a little bit more off of the layers. So now I'm going to go in with my yellow, and I'm going to repeat this process. I'm going to sketch out my wave, cut it, cut out the top, and do this for all of my layers. So you can keep it simple and just keep the waves as they are, or you can add some details. I'm going to show you a few ways of adding some details. I'm not going to do this for all of the layers as it would make an extremely long video. I don't recommend doing this with scissors because it's going to be really hard to cut out the fine details, and I would recommend leaving it more simple. So I'm just going to take my pencil and draw out some triangles and trace over those with my X-acto blade and punch them out. Again, an X-acto blade is really important for these types of details, but you could definitely achieve this by folding the paper and using scissors to cut in the middle. It would just be way more challenging. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of this layer out and then show you what that looks like. So this is the importance of continuing to check your layers. I've noticed that once I put the orange on top of the yellow, that it's a little bit too long at the top. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little bit more trimming. I wanted to make sure that the yellow went down far enough to fill in all of the triangle holes. And I can achieve that by just trimming a little bit wider hole at the top. And I relayer it just to double check. Yep, it's looking much better now. Put my top layer on. Great. Next color is green. Again, repeating the process, doing my tracing. For this one, I'm going to do some circle shapes. Even though my X-acto blade is incredibly dull, I'm going to give it a go. Paper tends to dull X-acto blades quite a bit. This X-acto blade was already old to begin with. Usually when I start a new paper project, I like to put on a fresh X-acto blade, and then I use my downgraded X-acto blades for things like cutting cardboard, cutting plastic, things like that. So here I'm just cutting out the top. And I actually don't like the waves that I cut the first time, so I'm just going to go a little bit deeper here. Yeah, that's way better. And again, you can use a pencil and draw out these designs, but if it doesn't work out, you can just trim it up. All right, we're almost ready for our final process here. I'm layering all of our layers just to make sure that everything looks good and that I like the way it is. As you can tell, they don't all match up, but you could line it up a little bit better in the frame so that they all matched. I didn't see the need to do that. And once you have it all lined up and you like the way that it looks, what we're going to be doing is we're going to separate all these layers and we're going to cut up our cardboard. I'm going to cut this into a lot of random pieces because I'm going to need some big pieces, some small pieces, tiny triangles, little skinny sticks, and you'll see why in just a moment. You can use different materials for this. You can use foam core. If you don't have cardboard, you can just roll up some pieces of paper to the same thickness. You could forgo paper and have it lay flat. You could use foam stickers, which is my preferred method. I love the little foam stickers for scrapbooking. And you can cut those to size as well. Those are really the least amount of mess, and you can keep your paper looking really clean. So I'm going to start with our dark orange. I'm going to lay my light orange underneath just to see where it's going to be. I'm going to grab some cardboard pieces, and that's about where I'm going to put them. So I have one skinny side here, you can see on the right hand side. And I will show you how to do that. That's why we need a bunch of different pieces of cardboard. So you just want to be mindful of where the bottom of your egg is. There's no line that tells you exactly where it is because we don't want to see that. So just try and keep your cardboard pieces away from that. But you need quite a few cardboard pieces because you don't want any sagging. If you put a few on in the corners, it should be fine for a little while, but paper will start to sag over time into the little gaps that you have. So I recommend putting as much cardboard on as you can in the areas so that it doesn't sag. And again, this does not need to be pretty because we're not going to see it. Cool. Layer 1 is done, and we're going to do this for all of the layers. Checking to make sure that everything lines up. And adding our cardboard. And you can cut cardboard as you go. You may need more, you may need less. It depends on how intricate your design is. If there is quite a big surface area that has holes all the way through, so if I did polka dots all over one egg, I would want to put some tiny pieces of cardboard in between just to support the center of that. So imagine if you have lace and you're only tacking the lace down on the very edges, it may sag in the middle if you don't put something in the middle to support it. It's a pretty quick, simple process, but the effect that we're going to get from adding these spacers, these cardboard spacers, is going to be super cool because you're going to add a lot of depth so that you see your cutout work and your line work. This is also the same way that you would make a paper cut light box. If you were to use lighter colors, pastel colors, or white colored cardstock, you could put a light behind it, like LED lights, and make a shadow box for it, and then it would show through, and the areas closest to the light would be lightest and the areas at the forefront. So in this case, our blue would be the lightest and our orange would be the darkest. So that's kind of a really cool concept as well. So we've got all of our layers sandwiched in between cardboard and more paper. And that's why there was no cutting necessary for our blue piece. You could make a paper box to put this whole assembly into. There's some really cool origami paper boxes that I like to make for these so that they stand on their own. You could also make this just a standard frame size and pop it in. You could buy a shadow box for it, and that would be fine too. But for a temporary seasonal craft, I just put it on the wall as is. Okay, here's our last blue layer. Everything looks good. I'm just gonna add some around the outside. There's no cutouts in this piece, so I don't need to worry about structure as much, so I don't need as many pieces of cardboard. So I'm just gonna add these finishing touches, pressing everything down, sandwiching it together, and it's done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you make one of your own. It's a very fun, simple craft that you can do with just paper. You could do it with copy paper. I recommend cardstock, but it would be something really fun to do with the family, something to do in a fine art setting. You can get really detailed with these. So I hope you try it out and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Bye.